Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Hi everyone, Jason Hunt here, inviting you to join us every Saturday morning for news. The week's headlines in science fiction, fantasy, horror, comic books, video games, plus Comic-Con updates and the weather, and the occasional interview along the way. We call it Good Morning Multiverse. We hope you join us every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, right here on Sci-Fi for Me TV.
America's southern border has become a war zone. Human traffickers, drug smugglers, and terrorists flow across the Rio Grande with impunity, secure in the knowledge that no one will stop them. A distant federal government lectures Americans on their privilege while punishing overworked Border Patrol agents who were helpless to stem the tidal wave of invaders and determined migrants. Second-generation Cuban-American Marcos Zamora is a military vet, more patriotic than most Americans. No longer able to ignore the chaos at his doorstep, he acts. Joined by his best friend Gus, they hit the border every night, saving lives while stopping violent drug cartels and other opportunists. The government reacts with fury at Marcos' attempts to preserve American sovereignty, deploying the full might of their enforcement agencies. But Marcos understands that the only thing the rich and powerful fear is bad publicity, and he records every encounter. Whoever he is, this private American must be stopped. Illustrated by Richard Bonk and written by Eisner winner Mike Barron, Private American is his version of Captain America, and maybe a little Punisher, taking part in this ongoing, violent, and very real battle of good versus evil in the war for American sovereignty. Grab your copy at theprivateamerican.com.
We have a secure border, and that is a priority for our administration.
And good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com, Chief Envelope Licker for Critical Blast Logistics, Myopic Proofreader for Critical Blast Publishing. And yes, I still do help people with their data needs with my 35 years of IT and data design and development with your crowdfunders, because those things are kind of tricky to figure out sometimes. I am surrounded by cardboard tonight because I got the final piece of the puzzle in for shipping this beautiful little campaign called Tropical Magics. So if you were a backer of Tropical Magics, watch your email because you will get a notice. If not tonight, then definitely tomorrow with your tracking number, because I'm going to plow through all of these things tonight, and I'm not resting until the entire campaign is packed, because that's just how we do things here with the logistics business. Tonight, we are going to get into a different aspect of the campaign, and that is on the promotion side of it. So please welcome with me to the show, creator and all-around all-American person, Bill Guerra. Bill, welcome to the show.
Hi.
You're in a bit of a fog there, it looks like.
Yes, something's wrong with my camera, I guess. I was trying to fix it.
You have dogs?
No.
Okay, so they're not licking the lens.
Yeah, it looks just like that, doesn't it? I tried cleaning it. I'm in high def, believe it or not. I guess I'll just have to get a new cam.
Is the house on fire? I mean, come on.
No, I don't even smoke.
Well, that's okay. We will plow through things here regardless. We have a full chat here tonight, including yourself. You're out there interacting. That's always cool when the creators are doing that. Mike Walters has stopped by to like and share the stream. Thank you, Mike. Do appreciate that. Get this out in front of more people so they can all see this project. User 123, 103 years ago. That is pre-internet. I don't know how you pulled that up, but hello to you and thanks for popping in.
That's some Back to the Future stuff.
I know it. Is that John Teeter? John Teeter, is that you, sir? If you don't know who John Teeter is, that's a rabbit hole of internet fun that you can dig into. Pops is here with a usual hey yo. Captain Finity offering a toast, and to you, sir. This is I was telling Bill before the show. This is my first time. I just opened this. I have not drank from it yet. I've sniffed at it. Smells like beer. It's only 4.7% alcohol. Yeah, it smells like beer and not chocolate. You know, there used to be a hamburger joint near where I lived called Johnny Rockets, and they had chocolate Coke, and I'd never had chocolate Coke before, and they literally just poured a Coke and then squirted Hershey syrup into the bottom and stirred it up, and it was surprisingly good.
Really?
I would order it every time after that I went in. So.
Oh.
So yeah, if you like a cherry Coke, this is just chocolate. In fact, if you squirt it into a cherry Coke, you get a chocolate cherry Coke. So it's
yeah, but then you get too many flavors all competing with each other.
I know,
like the orange vanilla Coke. It's too much, I think.
Yeah, and I never really got the flavor out of the cream soda Dr. Peppers that they put out because it was a mix of Dr. Pepper and cream soda. So it's like when we were kids at the 7-Eleven, you know, little of this, little of this, little of this, little of this.
And it tastes like nothing.
It's all just flavored sugar water in the end. So it doesn't taste like anything except sugar and carbonation.
Mm-hmm.
User 123 says, cool trailer. Mike Walters said, just started covering DC's All-American Comics a few months back. Yes, on his comic book retrospective show that he does on Fridays, and we're going to be interviewing Mike about that real soon to come up on next Friday, either this Friday or next Friday. It's coming up soon to go over what his show is all about. Who else is in here? Harrenberg is in the chat. Hello, Harrenberg. Haven't seen you in a while. Yes, this is right up your alley. Harrenberg will and Super Gals. In fact, if there's not a crossover between your two properties in the near future, it's criminal. The second graphic novel of Super. Yes, thank you. That's what Harrenberg does. He drops links. He is one of our best wrenches. So thank you for that. Wow, out of breath. And now let's see if I throw up.
Off camera.
I can taste the chocolate.
Do you taste the beer?
I can taste the beer.
It's still a weird combo, I think.
Well, it's a port, and it it's kind of like my first beer. You remember that first beer was no good. It was like, oh my God, why do people drink this? Same with my first coffee. I have a feeling this is what you call an acquired taste.
Better you than me.
Oh, it's going to go down. This is the first of 6 bottles I've got, so
as long as it doesn't come back up.
Yeah, it may not be a return purchase. Who knows? By the time, whoa, hello, it just kind of hit me there. But by the time I get to the 6th bottle, which could be a week and a half now, maybe I'll grow to love it like I did the orange stuff. Chocolate beer is for kids. Okay, so there we go. I got my trick or treat all figured out. If I don't want to drink them, I can just put them in bags.
I wouldn't recommend that.
To the parents. So here you go, some chocolate for you for Halloween. Oh, so Bill, you're into making comics. This is your 2nd campaign.
Yes.
So you're still working on your original property. It's not like you've got hey, I got a whole universe of different titles here. Is that something you'd want to build to, or is like this is your focus? You're doing this story.
This is my focus. I have 6 books plotted, so it's definitely all going somewhere. I think I had explained it last time. It was like a year ago I was on, so I guess I can say it again.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Basically, the story that I've been wanting to tell is what books 4 through 6 would be. And I didn't want to George Lucas it and start on part 4 and do 5 and 6. And then like 20 years later, go back and do 1 through 3. Mainly because
and then even worse, give it to somebody else to finish later on and have them just totally jacked up.
I'd probably never actually go back and do 1 through 3. So I sat down and kind of figured things out so I could get everyone to where they need to be for the trilogy I want to tell. So then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bite the bullet. Let's just sit down, page 1, book 1, and just work through it and, get to where I want to be. I figured if nothing else, it'd be a good chance for me, a good learning experience. And like, I had worked on comic books in the past, like black and white, very indie comics. And, so like I kind of knew what I was doing, but I'd never done a graphic novel before. And a graphic novel, of course, is longer. It's more pages, more work intensive. So yes. It's a different skill set in colors as opposed to black and white. So, it was a learning experience for sure. And it took me 2 years to get through it because I was doing it on weekends and holidays and vacations and, before, after work or whatever. So, it took what felt like forever to get through it. And, but at least I have a starting point. I've got the ending point, and I know each book, like certain things that have to happen. Oh, I don't know about being George Martin.
But he's saying it's good that you know where your story's going because George R.R. Martin does not.
Oh, I get it.
He can't end that thing to save his life.
Right. Well, much like George Martin, I was watching. I had rewatched Game of Thrones recently in preparation for the House of the Dragon show, and I really like the whole kind of multi-generational aspect of Game of Thrones. Like a bunch of stuff happened 20 years prior, which set up the events of the show, and only some of those people are still around and stuff. And then I realized like I had been doing that myself in the graphic novels, which really comes into play or starts coming into play in this book and will be more of a focus as it moves along. And so then I was all kind of like proud of myself, like, yeah, look at me. Like I accidentally set this up the way that I was wanting to.
Yeah. Oh, I need that Pee Wee Herman clip where he falls over the top of his bike and gets up and says, I meant to do
that. It was kind of like that because I had realized like, I just love that multi-generational aspect. And I've always liked in comic books with, I I don't want to say necessarily sidekicks taking over the role of a superhero, because I think by now that's just been more than outdone. It's been done so much. But I always kind of like the aspect of like Batman and a Robin, and like Robin grew up and became Nightwing, and he's a member of the Titans and stuff, and he's doing his own thing. And now there's been like, I don't know, 5 or 6 Robins or whatever, but that's been done to death as well.
There's a whole flock
I
of them.
like that idea, like that there's a mentor and mentee and kind of thing, and the young guy gets to grow up and do his own thing, and so I wanted to play around with that a bit, but I also didn't want to necessarily have it be like parent and child, like there could be actual like a generation or two in between characters even. It's kind of like the mantle is kind of the important thing, as opposed to the last name of the person dressing up in the costume type thing.
Yeah. I always, not always, actually, it's actually more of a recent development. I've wanted to see a hero. What happens if somebody gets superpowers, and they're, first of all, not a billionaire, and secondly, they don't have the kind of job that allows them to get out and be part of their job, like roving reporter or police scientist or newspaper photographer. Like, what if you're a 9-to-5 accountant and you have meetings scheduled all day long, but you can fly and there's a fire? What do you do? How do you balance that? You got to eat because you're not invulnerable. But at the same time, you can do something. Yes. Now, if you're invulnerable, screw it. You don't need anything. Just quit your job and stay home. But if you need the money, and
right.
I guess you go superhero mercenary. But I was just thinking of that when you were talking about all these legacies. Like, yeah, Dick Grayson, he was raised by a billionaire and then he became a cop. So yeah, he can patrol the city, and if he sees something, he just changes costumes. Which is kind of weird because you'd think he could yell, "Stop, police, and here's my gun, and I'm going to arrest you."
Well, wasn't his thing he was a cop in the day and then he was Nightwing at night kind of thing?
Yeah. So he doesn't sleep. There's that much already established. He's
yeah, when do these people sleep? That was one thing that I actually thought about when plotting out both of these books. Was I was thinking, like, when are they going to get any sort of rest? Because I don't want to do a scene of like, oh, I have to eat dinner, or like I have to go to the bathroom or something like that, like, but I want to also kind of imply like time's going by, things are happening. So I've been trying to space things out, like with a caption, like the next day or hours later. So you can,
and
just
there's nothing wrong with that. I love those things.
Like, oh, okay, they must have got something to eat, or they took care of other things, and now here we are.
I miss those kind of narrative boxes. You turn the page and it's like, meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice.
Yeah, I love those boxes. I mean, I am not afraid to use caption boxes, and I'm not afraid to use thought balloons. Because thought balloons is something else which has gone bye-bye in the last, like 15 years or so?
The medium it was, that we were in that person's head. Right. And we knew what they were thinking.
Yeah, like, that's why you can't have these wholesale changes of characters, because it's like, no, we know what they've been thinking for the past 60, 70, 80 years in some cases. Like, I don't know. That's a whole other argument.
I gave them Tim Drake. I said, okay, you can have Tim Drake because apparently this is a very sweet beer. I've got a gnat in here and he wants it. And for some reason, I'm defending it. But with Tim Drake, I was like, okay, yeah, I know we've got 30 years of Tim Drake is this way. Like, but reading comics is like watching a surveillance camera in a TARDIS. It distends time. Like, we met him 30 years ago and he was 14. Like, 30 years later, he's 16. They've given us both those numbers. So like, okay, he's a 16-year-old kid. He's still figuring out who he is and stuff. I can forgive that. But Batman himself, no, that won't fly. So, just because we spent 30 years with him doesn't mean he spent 30 years with us, if that makes any kind of sense.
Well, there's also comic book time, which I always like to point out how like Shadowcat from the X-Men. When she first debuted, she was like 13 and a half. She'd always make a point. I'm 13 and a half. Like that was a big deal. I was like 5. So she was like, you know, she could have been like my babysitter or something. But nowadays, here I am in my late 40s, and she's only like in her early 20s. So she's aged a lot better than me in that span. Because
I started out younger than Archie, and now I'm a lot older than him, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest that, you know, he's had, you know, 65 senior proms.
How many Christmases have been in Marvel Comics?
Well, yeah. I mean,
they used to do it annually.
Bob Rozakis at the Answer Man guy used to always, because people would write in and say, how old is Batman? How old is Superman? And his pat answer was always, Batman and Superman are both 29 years old, and they have been active for the past 5 years. And he's like, you know, doesn't matter how many stories, it's this moving 5-year, it's this perpetual 29. And that worked great until Dick Grayson said, you know what, I'm going to be Nightwing now. And it's like, it just pulled the plug out of the clock that was stopping it, and it was allowing that thing to move forward, because now we got a new Robin, and he grows up, and we get another Robin, and he grows up. I'm like, he ain't 29 no more. That's just not freaking possible.
And how many Robins have there been? Because when they did the new 52, they tried to say like, oh yeah, Batman's origin, it's all still there, including the 5 Robins, but he's only been around for 5 years. That's 1 Robin per year. Like none of that worked out.
Well, and yeah, there was even an editorial gaffe somewhere where Batman's looking out over Crime Alley, and he says, it was like 8 years ago today, or 10 years ago today. It's like, wait a second, you were only 8 years old when they were killed. That would make you 18, and you have a 6-year-old kid. Like, no, you have a 12-year-old kid. So, you know, there was a
lot of those numbers you can't think about, or otherwise everything just comes unraveled, you know?
Yeah.
I was explaining to my niece about comic book time and the sliding time scale, because I was explaining to her, like, I use a sliding time scale because, like, the group that existed before the Super G.A.L.S, they were 25 years ago, and they're always going to be 25 years ago, no matter what the current date is, you know, like, so I was explaining to her how that works. And, you know, she kind of had to wrap her head around it a little bit, because it was the first time she had been exposed to that comic book time, you know, but she picked up on it pretty quick from that point.
It falls apart when you tie things to it that are specific to a time.
Like
for instance,
9/11. Yeah. World War II. Yep.
All those heroes in World War II. I mean, that's why the MCU, Captain America, went to what country? I've been told it's Hydraland. You know, because he was there fighting Hydra. It was not the Nazi Germans. It was because it wasn't that time period at all. And I'm like, and we know that it couldn't possibly have been Nazi Germany, because Howard Stark was there, and that's Tony Stark's father, not his grandfather. Like, and he's sending messages to Tony. So Tony was a baby in World War II. Doesn't work.
See, that you're right. You can use time periods, such as like World War II, and say Captain America was there because then he was frozen on ice. So then it's just the amount of time he's in ice goes from 20 years to like 70 years.
Exactly.
Which, you know, you could sleep for 20 years and wake up and still recognize the world. Like fashions would be different kind of thing, but it would be shocking, but not that shocking. Waking up in 70 years, I mean, your mind's going to be blown, you know, like, think of 70 years ago from now, like the world's not the same. So, I mean, I guess in that respect, even Captain America, like, it's more of a traumatic event for him the longer he's in ice, because now he's pushing 100 years in the ice, you know. But like stories like 9/11, like when they did that Spider-Man issue, I was like, I hope this is out of continuity, because otherwise this now anchors Spider-Man. Like, he was there on this specific date.
Yeah, but and you know what? They can still do that. They can do an in continuity as long as it doesn't serve as the linchpin for an ongoing story. So, you know, I was fighting the Kingpin and he had to go to trial, but the trial was interrupted because of 9/11. and now he's free. Now that's impacting the story. But if it's just, what they did, which was, he's there, he's helping, he sees Captain America. It was a tribute kind of thing. And they can reference what happened, and they can reference what's going to happen or what is happening. But if it doesn't serve as a linchpin, then it can be like a standalone sort of, here's because I've got that book, and the ones I really liked were the two DC ones that they did. No, the two Dark Horses, one DC did a tribute book. That was a cool thing.
I mean, a tribute's one thing, but trying to squeeze it into like continuity is what I hate, because and I don't mean just 9/11, but all of the big events, world events, because then you're tying stuff in like Captain America and the Secret Empire, and when it was supposed to be like Richard Nixon was the head of the Secret Empire, and you're anchoring him to a specific time frame, so like it doesn't keep it timeless that way. It's better off to use like stuff as inspiration for a story as opposed to trying to tie them into real events.
Post 9/11 should have been a completely advantageous and profiteering time to publish some Captain America stories, because that's what he was good at. He was the American propaganda machine. A decent writer of men's adventure stories. It's like, yep, we're taking Cap and we're parachuting over the Middle East, and we're going to have some Captain America stories that are just like when he was in the army in Germany, changing costumes behind foxholes and stuff like that.
Fighting Hydra.
Fighting Hydra. Because Hydra would have been behind it. So you've mentioned graphic novels a couple of times here, and I did not realize that these were not floppies, the Super G.A.L.S stories. How thick are these books?
Well, here's the first one. I'm trying to make sure the light's not shining off the plastic. But this one's 68 pages. It's a full book there. The second one is going to be a little bit shorter. It's 60 pages. I want to go 48 pages moving into book 3 and forward. I gave myself the extra, what turned out being 20 pages in the first book, because I was kind of feeling out everything as I was working. And I like to draw in bigger panels. I'm not like a little panels kind of guy. And then it's a work in progress learning stuff. So I was able to kind of trim it back a little bit for book 2, without cutting out content. And, it's 68 pages for book 1 and 60 pages book 2 of story. That's not like, I'm not throwing in like sketches or stuff like that and calling it.
Those pages don't count.
Right. That's the way I look at it. So, it's, like I said, I want to go for 48. So like what they would always call the prestige format books back in the day. Nowadays, I guess they just call them graphic novels. But it's got the thicker covers and everything, and the spine to it. So yeah, they're not floppies.
Okay. User 123 says he got the first one, was really good. He can't wait for the second one. And Herwenberg says, it looks like the two graphic novels have different sets of female characters. So I think you explained a time variance, but was that 25 years between book 1 and book 2, or?
No, it's the same team. There's just that many where they can actually staff 2 teams, basically.
Oh, okay, it's Super G.A.L.S Unlimited now.
Kind of think of it a little bit like the X-Men Blue and Gold teams back in the 90s. And basically, there's a reason why I'm staffing them with so many bodies right now, but I can't really go into it without spoiling future plans.
Well, let's take a quick look at the campaign here. It's not an overly complicated campaign, folks. So while we're sitting here talking about it, I'd appreciate it if you would click on the link under the video, and let's see if Bill can leave here tonight with a number other than 0. This was launched this afternoon, so we've got an opportunity here to get this thing rolling. It's only a $1,500 fixed goal, 60 days to get there. Don't wait till day 59 because you'll forget.
True. Yeah, I wanted to keep the campaign simple. So
you succeeded.
Yeah, I mean, I did
like,
want
I
to
missed something. It's all on one screen.
And nowadays everyone complains about paper shortages and everything else. So I didn't want to have like posters, and then like now I'm waiting an extra 3 months for the posters, and so I just wanted to keep it very simple.
Yeah, I had to wait an extra 2 weeks for these trading cards to come in.
See, I thought about trading cards, but then I didn't know how long the wait would be, and I was like, let's just keep it simple.
If you schedule it and you tell people this is the actual date, then they're usually okay. So this is the Guild of Augmented Law Enforcement Specialists, fighting crime in a future time. No, that's a different.
The Cops. Yeah, I remember that show.
Yeah.
Now, the team was named by my former writing partner, who unfortunately died a few years ago. He was the writer, and he loved his acronyms. So I personally hate acronyms, but there you go. That's the origin of the name.
But it works. So you can get this graphic novel in digital. And I know that we've got plenty of people in the chat who have to have digital for either they don't want to pay overseas shipping, understandable,
Yes,
or you just don't have space.
That's another. I do have like not to like sound like I'm bragging, but I do have some fans over in like Western Europe, and they do not want to pay like $60 for like a $20 book.
Oh.
And like you said, I can totally get that.
Yeah,
so
talk to us. We can help you with that one.
Like, can you make a digital version? And so I said, yeah, why not?
But if you do want to get physical, the Loyal Sidekick is here, $20 for the graphic novel, and it will be. Now, does this net is bugging me? How did he even get in here? Oh, I know how he got in here.
It was in your beer when you opened it.
Yeah, he's flying around drunk, which is why I can't catch him. He's just doing loops. Does the Loyal Sidekick come with the PDF? Because I know a lot of campaigns are like, when you get the physical, the PDF is always added onto it.
I just had the physical copy.
Okay.
Because I built the campaign around the physical copy, basically.
That is the object of the whole thing. And of course, you do have the backup, the catch-up tier, which I love seeing those. So for $45, you can get book 1 and book 2. So
yes, and I would like to point out about book 1, because I still have some left from the first go around. And these are the first print. So inside in the legalese, it specifically states first printing. So there's 15 of these available of the bundle pack. And those are like, they're the last 15 of first print of book 1. From this point, anytime I reprint book 1, it's going to be labeled as second printing. And I'm probably going to alter the cover a bit, maybe change the color or something.
Yeah, you can just say second printing also on the top of the book somewhere unobtrusively. And that's enough.
That. But so I just want to point out, this is the first printing. So anyone who missed the first go around, this is your chance to have that first printing in your hands.
Didn't run out and kick off another print run, folks. So the collectability of it has been left, the integrity of the collectability has been left solid. So you can get Left Far Behind and Theater of Pain. Now, I'm curious about the cover on this one here, because that's an awfully pastoral and idyllic setting for Theater of Pain. We're surrounded by, I cut them out whenever I made the label. I said, "Oh, Theater of Pain, they're going to be standing, where did I put it? They'll be standing on like a barren apocalyptic place with thunder moving in. This is the Theater of Pain."
Well, there's a reason why. For one, I just like 3-word titles. I just think that they're kind of cool. But also the real reason is the Theater of Pain is in reference to an underlying current that's going on among the team. Because in the first book, I guess I can say this without giving too much away because people have read it, but someone dies at the end of it. And so in this book, it's only like 2 weeks later, so they're still reeling from all that.
Okay.
And so the team that you can see on the cover of book 1, they're basically told. Am I hearing an echo? Is that me?
I don't know. I moved my microphone around here because there's noise in the other room, and I want to make sure that
Oh, okay.
parabolic mic shouldn't pick it up. It should only pick up what's directly in front of it.
Okay, so the team that was in book 1 is basically told. I'm still hearing that echo. Hold on just a second.
I'm not hearing it, so it's not going out, at least.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that seemed to have done it. Okay. So they're basically told, you're all on vacation because, you know, you went through this big ordeal. Someone died. You got to take a break for a while. So the remainder of the team has to step up and kind of take care of things. And this takes place. I always wanted to do a story in a hidden land, like Marvel has a savage land, Valiant goes far away. So I have this place. It's deep in the Amazon. It's called the Nexus. And there's a portal there that's basically going haywire. And it's pulling different people and even things from out of different points in time and depositing them into the Nexus. And things are understandably going crazy. And so that's what brings the super gals down there to see what's going on. And then, you know, you get to have superhero fun that way. So that's the idyllic background there, because they're basically in the Amazon in like this kind of hidden land there. And I just really wanted to have a fun time drawing like dinosaurs, knights, cowboys and Indians, samurai. There's even some laser troopers like from somewhere in the future, you know, just like stuff that as a kid I just thought would be fun to do.
It's not like when they did Crisis, you had dinosaurs running around downtown Manhattan with UFOs shooting at them. Just like all time just kind of converged, which was kind of fun. Eric Boyd in the chat says he has
too.
Yeah. Eric says he's got a pending Ashcan comic coming up with all female characters on a team. The She Agents, another acronym. So, and he's sharing this stream on Twitter. Thank you for that. Appreciate it, Eric. And you know, when you get that thing closer to launching, reach out to us and bring you on the show, and we'll take a look at the She Agents. So now we've got Heroinberg, Super Gals, and She Agents. This could be an
crossover, a 3-way crossover waiting to happen.
No, don't say 3-way with all female teams. That just is going to be a YouTube flag us like crazy.
I meant it in the Comics Code approved way.
Yes, there we go. Me and my dirty mind. For Cosmic Being #1, which means there's going to be a second one down here, folks. So stay tuned. You get the Ultimate Fan Pack, and with this, you're going to get the graphic novel.
Both of them.
The first one, both graphic novels, 3 9x12 prints. That's bigger than a comic. That's bigger than a comic book. That's almost Golden Age size.
Yeah. There's the 1, the group shot. 2 is of the butterfly, and 3 is of All American Girl with her 2 inspirations, Sentinel and the All American up top.
All right. Those look.
They're on really nice thick paper and everything.
And a double page spread of the Super Gals dressed as the various Lantern Corps members. And let's bring that up here. Oh, come on. Don't double click. So there you go. There's the entire emotional spectrum in another universe with the Super Gals in the costumes.
Right. I just did this one for fun, and people seem to think it was pretty cool. So I figured, why not sell it?
I love that kind of stuff. I mean, I was at a Chicago convention in the late 80s, and I saw a guy who was drawing like the entire cast of Archie at Riverdale High, but they were all wearing Legion of Superheroes costumes. So there was enough for everybody on both sides, and it came out to be a pretty cool pick.
That's awesome.
For Cosmic Being #2, again, you get both the books, you get the 3 9x12 spreads, but this time you're going to get them. Yeah, this looks familiar. I like that. Dang,
Yeah,
I don't know which one to pick.
I gave them the original X-Men costumes from the 60s, the updated ones from the 90s, and then the New Mutants costumes from the 80s.
That is sweet. So now you drew these.
Yep.
So you do all your own interior artwork
Yep.
and writing. So this is a one man shop here.
Yeah, for better or worse, it's all me. So if you like it, bless your heart. You can give me the credit. If you hate it, then you can blame me because it's just all me.
There we go. So yeah, Eric, I agree. We know it's hard to see his camera right now. There's a fog somewhere. There's a fog of war in his cables somewhere. We don't know where it's at.
Like the
Find
horror
it
movie,
later.
The Fog.
Yeah, exactly. And we probably talked about this on your a year ago or more when you were on here last time. But you are familiar with the
I was asked about that. I read exactly one issue over the course of my life back when I was like, I don't know, 16 or 17 or something. So I know of FemForce, but like I wasn't like an avid collector or anything like that. Good luck to me trying to name anyone. Didn't they use a couple of like free domain characters like they brought back or something?
I don't know myself. Heroinberg would know if they used any public domain characters in FemForce, because there were certainly some that could be used. I think Masquerade was one that they're still using over at Dynamite. Here we go. Eric says Ms. Victory is a public domain character, so that would have been one of them. Yeah, love public domain characters. I think there's a lot of potential still left in them, especially
Yeah.
like we talked about being asleep for 70 years. If you update some of these characters and put them in a modern setting, how would the Shadow operate with the internet? Because remember, he had all of his agents communicated with him via vacuum tubes, vacuum tunnel, like you have at your bank drive up. They would put something in there, they would cap it in, and just go all around the city in these hidden little vacuum tubes, and it would drop down into his receptionist's office, and she'd open it up, says, "Oh, Jimmy on 12th Street says that there's a car speeding past," and it was.
He should still use the vacuum tubes.
He should, because you can't hack it.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, because if you tried to hack the tubes, you'd compromise the tube. It wouldn't work right anymore, so it'd be obvious someone was doing something.
That would be great to have him still work analog, everything analog, which is what he's off the grid. He's a shadow.
Yeah, it'd be cool just seeing characters like the Shadow or Doc Savage, who I'm not too familiar with. And I'm sure these characters have owners, but
they
seeing
do.
them kind of together doing stuff would be neat, I think.
Yeah, as they're definitely old enough to be in public domain, but they're trademarked by their respective holders, so that it makes it impossible to use them in public domain. It's not like Tarzan. Tarzan, you can write any Tarzan story you want, but Tarzan is trademarked, so you can't call the book Tarzan in the Lost City of the Amazons, or Tarzan and the Super Gals in the Savage Land. You can say
the man of
Super Gals in the Jungle, and you can have him in there, and they can call him Tarzan, and he can respond all you want. You just can't put it in the title.
Oh yeah, it's like the Shazam Captain Marvel thing.
Yeah,
you can't call him Captain Marvel on the book cover or the title or anything.
Well, they've totally given up calling him that in the story too.
Well, true. Yeah.
And I hate that, because he was always Captain Marvel. The one that always confused me was Captain Marvel Jr., because he turned into Captain Marvel Jr. by saying Captain Marvel, and then it was kaboom, instead of saying Shazam. And I was like, anytime you ask him who he is, he'd be like, I'm Captain Marvel, bam, and there he is. He can't say his own name.
Maybe it was intent, though. He just couldn't say his. He couldn't call Captain Marvel, but he could call himself Captain Marvel Jr.
Yeah,
I'm just guessing. I don't know.
I think they actually brought in that whole intent thing in the past couple of years, because Billy Batson said, he said, say my name. What, Shazam? No, like you mean it. Say it with intent. Oh, that would be stupid.
I never liked the whole thought of like they renamed him Shazam, but then he says Shazam. They have the lightning hit him and turn into Shazam, because then he can't say his own name. Like, I don't know, it just seemed weird to
Yeah,
me.
exactly. They named him Shazam, and now he can't say his own name, but they changed it so that he has to say it with the intent of changing.
Oh, okay. Well, all right, that makes sense then, I guess. In comic book logic.
I think it was The Boys, where they went up against a Shazam character, but you didn't see them fight Shazam. You just saw them in the bathroom with a teenage kid, and his mouth was bleeding, and he was going because they cut his tongue out.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, well, that's The Boys.
I don't watch it.
They were. I don't know that they did it in the show. I saw this scene in the comic book.
Okay, yeah.
Original pages. And I only found that one issue of that. I said, let me try this. I'm like, okay, so that exists.
That's the way I am. I like my superhero comics like old school, like these graphic novels, they're all ages. Anyone can read it. Like I miss that kind of stuff. And I always told myself, if I ever got to make comics for myself or anywhere, I want to do it so just anyone can read it. I loved reading comics ever since I was like 5 years old. And like I learned how to read from comic books. Yep. And I wouldn't necessarily always understand everything that was being talked about, but I could follow the story, and like it made me feel smart because I was following the story even when I was this little kid. And even like going back and rereading some of those books, like as an adult, I was like, oh wow, like a lot of this stuff like flew right over my head.
Yeah, a lot of it.
That's like a sign of a good comic, I think.
A good, clever writer will do that. I mean, I was reading in kindergarten, and nobody knew I could read, and I didn't tell anybody because I thought everybody could do it. I didn't think it was special until they found out in first grade that I could read, and I mean, read. I tell the story. The teacher was holding up the big placard with and reading it aloud to the class. Follow the bouncing finger, and I'd already read it and was playing around and fidgeting, and she asked me, like teachers will, said, would you like to read this to the class? So I did. And it had words in there like chlorophyll and photosynthesis, and I just flipped right through them. And because I read The Flash, he fought the Floronic Man, and that's how he defeated him and all that stuff. Poison Ivy, same way, Batman takes her down with some, never mind. It was just
I surprised my teachers when I knew what the word omnipotent meant when I was in like first or second grade or something like that. It's like, that's just a normal comic book word. Doesn't everybody know what that means?
Exactly. Yeah. Ask me about antimatter and matter. Don't let the two touch.
Right.
It'll blow up real big.
Exactly. I mean, comic books are really good for kids to read because of their vocabulary. And like we were saying, a well-written book, when you're a kid, you can read it and get one thing out of it. And when you go back and read it as an adult, you can get a whole other thing out of it. And that's a sign of a good story. And it's crafted well. And I don't know that I'm that good of a writer yet. Hopefully I'm decent enough where something like that can be done. But yeah, I mean, there's so many examples of stuff. If we had the time, I'd go on all night about like, these books where stuff was going on that I just didn't get as a kid, and it didn't dilute my enjoyment of it. It didn't make me feel like, I was frustrated or anything like that, so there's a lot of magic to comics, the stories and pictures, the whole medium, the storytelling medium is so much fun. There's so much magic to it. And I feel in some ways, because of just, I don't know, modern politics and everything, a lot of that fun's kind of been taken away, a lot of that innocence. And I'm just trying to do my little part to bring that back, whatever I can do.
And there were things in there that they just kind of glossed over real quickly. It's like I remember I was reading Green Lantern, and Hal Jordan and Carol Ferris went on a camping trip, which led into an adventure. And they get up the next morning and they're sitting by the campfire, and she's wearing this night shirt, and he's wearing, he's shirtless and he's wearing these pajama pants. I'm like, yep, they just woke up, And then I went back and read it as an older teenager, and I'm like, wait a second, that shirt matches the pants. Oh,
well, it's like the whole West Coast Avengers story when they went back in time, and Mockingbird was all mad at the Phantom Rider, and she let him die because he had, let's say, taken advantage of her. And I didn't even realize that when I was a kid. Like, that was one of those over my head things.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was an adult I was like, oh, I got
West Coast Avengers had that scene where Hawkeye walks in the room and you just see Tigra's leg up in the air, and you hear this grunting sound. And he's like, do you have to do that in here? And then the camera pans around, and she's like, doing stretches or something. And just like, you were definitely meant to think something else if you were an older reader.
Right.
So what do we got going on in the chat here? Didn't know there was an issue out last year. Well, see, now you can catch up. You can get them both, Eric.
Oh, thank you, Eric. That's nice of you to say.
You will not be disappointed. Thank you, Heroin Berg, for suggesting people hit the like. I never asked for people to hit the like. It's just kind of, hey, like my channel, please. It's a little beggy, but I do ask people to share it because that's more important for my guests. That it puts them in front of more eyeballs. You know people that I don't know, so your shares help with that. Herrenberg has a character with an extra action. Darna can say her name, but she has to swallow the Power Stone to become Darna. I'm not even going to ask how she gets the stone back.
The stone, yeah. That was the first thing I thought of. Like, if it's a pill, okay, whatever. But a stone.
Yeah, if it's like an underdog vitamin, I'm cool with that. But or some Miraclo. We talked about that just earlier this week. How many druggies there were who became superheroes? Because that's what they did. They just swallowed a pill and there we go, or breathed in a poisonous gas.
Well, remember Ant-Man in the early days? It was all in the pill. Well, first it was gas in the canisters on his belt, and then it was always he's having to swallow pills to shrink and grow and everything. And I remember thinking, like, when I was a kid, like, that's got to be so not convenient. Like, you got to dry swallow a pill to activate your powers.
And then, you got to have basically pepper granules in your pocket so that they're pill sized when you're an ant size. Like, because I gotta get this pill down my throat.
Well, I assume the pills just changed accordingly, with them, but you never know.
They might as well have. Yeah, everything else did. Shrinking heroes always mess with my head. They're
hard to do because I have one, the butterfly, and they're hard to do because I've realized if I draw the butterfly at let's say real size, you're not really going to see her. You'll see her wings, but not her. So you have to draw her bigger so you can see her, but then you can't really put a lot of detail into her because you're drawing her smaller. So either then you have to zoom that camera in to make her bigger, then everything else kind of gets cut out because you're not seeing around her. So yeah, it's really tricky. Some artists can pull it off really well, others can't. And I'm really learning with that myself.
I can deal with it when they're like, they go down to doll man size, or even the atom bouncing off of, erasers and hitting somebody with this 180 pound punch at, 2-inch size. But it's when they go subatomic. The Atom addressed that in an old Justice League adventure when he had the team with them, and they're like, running around between molecules, and they're asking like, hey, what are we breathing? He's like, do you think that's oxygen you're breathing right now? I try not to think about it because you're smaller than oxygen molecules. What are you breathing?
Wow. Yeah. See, stuff like that. If I ever think about it, I just kind of push it out of my brain. Because John Byrne once said on his forum that if you're asking all those questions all the time, like, basically it's just time for you to stop reading comics. Like, you just have to kind of just accept that this is happening, and then you can enjoy the story. When you're like nitpicking it apart, like, forget it. You're not going to enjoy it. The creator's not going to like it because they're going to get bombarded with questions. Or what are they breathing? So you got to just kind of accept some stuff.
Exactly. Mike is heading over to his channel right now because he is going to be doing the Mike stand. Monday through Thursday, he does the niche news, everything in manga, comics, and professional wrestling. Friday is, of course, the comic book retrospective we talked about. And Herwenberg said that not that one, this one down here. Darna's not his character, so I misspoke on that. She's the flagship heroine of Mars Ravello, the Stan Lee of Filipino comics. There's currently a live action TV series that runs 5 times a week. So tune in, same Darna time, same Darna channel every day for that one. Pull that one off. Eric says he's seen some Darna clips on YouTube. Sexy costume, very Wonder Woman-esque. Not a complaint. I completely agree with that. And the original Butterfly, who didn't shrink, was the first black superheroine back around 1972. She's public domain. I didn't know 72. Wow. 72 was just 3 weeks ago, Bill.
Before my time.
72 cannot be public domain. I refuse to accept that. She's public domain, but there's an indie publisher in North Carolina reviving her as a new character. So I wonder who did publish her. I should know the 1970s because it was just DC, Marvel, and Charlton at that time.
Wasn't there Atlas for a little while in the 70s?
It was Atlas for a while, yeah.
That was mostly like Marvel guys, wasn't it? Like disenfranchised Marvel guys.
Well, Marvel, I think Marvel acquired the Atlas comics. Yeah, because Marvel did that whole Agents of Atlas a few years back, and I think that had all the Atlas comics characters in them. Eric, come over to my show more often. You have all the answers. It's Skywald, who I don't know. So I'm going to have to look.
I'm drawing a blank on that. Wow. The closest I got to that is Skywarp, the Decepticon.
Yeah. Whenever I would get one of these off-brand comics as a kid, I would just love it. I'm like, there's something else other than, the Marvel and the DC universes. Because I didn't really get that until, my dad brought home a bundle of comics from a friend of his who worked at the printing plant in Sparta where they were all made.
Oh, wow.
That's why I was into comics so much. They were free and they were plentiful. Because everyone took home the overprints. But around a certain time, they started printing First Comics, PC Comics, Red Circle Comics. And I was reading American Flag, and I knew that I shouldn't be, but I didn't know. Ms. Mystic, Star Slammers. There was just a plethora of things. It's where I found Mike Grell's John Sable Freelance was through that new indie movement that was big enough to be a little bit more mainstream than garage comics, which I didn't have access to.
Yeah, you did really were a lot of indie stuff back then, because I was always a Marvel kid, and I kind of had my minor in DC, but I never really got into like the more indie stuff. I got my comics from 7-Eleven off the spinner rack. So if you found any sort of indie comics there, it was few and far between.
Yeah. And their 7-Eleven was 35 miles from me. So
mine is down the street.
I was in farm country, but
okay.
But Four Color Press was in Sparta, Illinois, and it employed a lot of people. So my comic shop was yard sales.
Yes, yard sales were huge for me. Yard sales and flea markets, because back before they did like the Marvel Epic collections and stuff like that, the only way you could read a lot of these was if you found the actual comics. And it's like I didn't even care if they're in bad shape. I just wanted to be able to get the comics and read them. And I was always a big Avengers guy, so like I always wanted those.
Skywald published a Ghost Rider character called Hellrider, and he rode a motorcycle. I wonder if he's public domain.
Well, Ghost Rider was originally the Phantom Rider in the Old West.
Yeah. And he is public domain if you call him Phantom Rider. You can't call him Ghost Rider because...
Well, he's a tricky one because Marvel does still occasionally use Phantom Rider.
Yeah.
So his physical appearance, like I wouldn't touch that one with a 10-foot pole because I know you would get a letter.
He would have to look the way he did when he first came out, and you wouldn't be able to use it.
The all white.
In that case, that's on Marvel. That's on Marvel if he does. But yeah, I mean, if it's in public domain, even if they're public, there's a website because I'm doing a public domain comic with a bunch of other people in anthology form, and we were all directed, hey, here is the public domain list of characters. And there's a lot of characters on there that are still being published, but because their original stories have become sold, Archie Andrews is in the public domain.
Really?
So, yeah, hard to believe. But
yeah, that's shocking. I figure Archie would have had that locked down like no
as
one.
a trademark, they do. You can't put out an Archie and his friends comic book,
right?
Because they got the trademark on the title. But if you want to just call it high school funnies, you could draw Archie and his friends as they appeared within the public domain window. So,
I wouldn't mess with that still because I think everyone's waiting for Superman because he's supposed to hit the public domain in what is it, 2029 or something like that?
Yeah, right around the corner.
And I know there's people like just salivating, waiting to get their hands on doing a Superman story, and it's like, okay, but you can only use Superman when he could leap tall buildings in a single bound, and he had like the different S shape on his chest and all that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they quite realize how different Superman was. Like, he would just chuck people out of windows and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. He just broke through the governor's door and then flew him off to the execution chamber to get that pardon in time. Cause he's like, this guy didn't do it. Sign the pardon. He's like,
yeah. Like Superman was a different character. So was Batman. He used to walk around with a gun and, shoot people dead. And, these aren't the characters we know, now, because these are the 80-plus-year-old versions of them. So I think there's going to be a lot of craziness for a few years when all these characters start hitting the free domain. I think there's going to be lawsuits. There's some lawsuits won't hold any water. Some will. And I'm kind of just like, I feel like that Michael Jackson picture when he's got the popcorn sitting there eating with the smile on his face. Like, I just want to see what's going to happen when all that goes down.
It'll be a good time to be a copyright attorney, because you'll either be prosecuting or defending, and either way, you're making money. It'll be. I'll watch. I have heard Zach also talk several times about wanting to do Batman as soon as it goes public. We'll see if that ever happens.
Zach, that's who I had in mind. Yep. Because now he's the kind of guy who likes to dot his I's and cross his T's. So if anyone's able to do it and get away with it, I think it'd probably be him. But he's also someone that the mainstream doesn't like. So I'm sure they're going to be watching him like under a microscope.
They would pounce immediately if he did anything that stepped out of line.
Yes. Even if he doesn't step out of line, he still might get hit by some, cease and desist or something.
Yeah.
So
it's like, you have to stay within the public domain, and you drew his ears just a half inch too tall. They weren't tall until the Marshall Rogers era.
I mean, they'll want to mess with them. They'll look at it like, this is our chance. This is our excuse. And, so I wish him luck because I would like to see him do something like that. But I also would advise him, like, dude, don't just probably not going to be worth it.
Captain Finney says he only wants to write characters he created. And there is
it's so
a lot
much
more
fun.
Liberty and freedom in there.
It's fun too, because you feel like in some ways I let these characters write themselves, like you breathe a certain amount of life into them, and then you can kind of sit back in a way. You just kind of like, I'm going to put them in this situation, then what happens? And
because you know how they'll react or how they should
yes
react.
And no. I mean, like, you have a general idea, this is how she would act, that's what she would say. But then also you think, like, you know what? I think this would happen. Like, it wasn't exactly what I was thinking, but it does make sense. And so that's what I mean when I say, like, I kind of let them write themselves in a way, with ultimately keeping my eye on this is where they need to be, by a certain point. But you won't be able to do that a lot with a corporate owned character because ideally you have to put the toys back in the sandbox when you're done.
Yeah. Public domain characters is, in a way, it's sort of like fan fiction with legitimization behind it. And everybody wants to do the Black Terror. I mean, It's the only public domain that anybody cares about because everybody's doing the Black Terror.
And there's that one good book right now. What's his face is doing about it.
Von Klaus.
Yes, von Klaus. I was thinking
Terror in the
German name,
Trenches.
but yeah, his book looks really cool. And didn't he get messed with by someone about his book?
Well, somebody was trying to call it a Punisher knockoff, and I'm like, oh, you guys. No, other way around, actually, guys. But he's sticking with the well, he had some beheadings or some violence on one of his pictures, and Indiegogo said, yeah, you can't do that.
That was
Indiegogo is
right.
Yeah, and Indiegogo is notorious for letting you run your entire campaign and then finding a reason to stop it after you've collected all your money, but they haven't given it to you yet. So then you've got to go in and edit the campaign that nobody's looking at anymore, picture off, so that they'll give you your money. So Brenda wants to know how many Super Gal comics there will be. I want them all. I think you said there were going to be 6 total.
6 are planned, and by hook or by crook, I'll do 6. You know, I don't know how long it'll take me to do 6, but hopefully no more than a few years. But yeah, 6 is what the plan is. And I even have ideas for beyond that, but I wanted to keep it within the realm of doability for the time being. I didn't want to go out like, oh, I got 20 books planned, you know?
Well, I can tell you now that since we have started, you have kicked off what we call our shake and bake moment, Bill. And it goes a little something like
It's shake and bake, and I help.
And that goes out to the folks in the chat who helped get this thing kicked off. You're at $106, almost 10% down on the way to goal, 60 days to go, but not a terrible start. Folks, please do share the video with people and let them know your enthusiasm for this project so that get this thing to become make it come to fruition.
I knew a couple of people signed up there because my phone was making noises off to the side.
Oh yeah, you were getting the little notations from Indiegogo. Hey, back or this, back or that.
Yeah, let me just say thank you to those who have signed up here or who bought the book. I don't know which tiers or whatever off the top of my head, but thank you. And I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm planning on this going out in March because I'm running it for 60 days, which takes us into December. And then I'm figuring 2 months for the printer because that seems to be about the norm nowadays.
Yeah.
So that would be
give them some time.
February. So then in March, I'd be able to have the books in hand and ship them out.
Excellent. Excellent. Is there anything about the, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that I did include a note in here that I will be including pages once I get more colored and then lettered. Right now, all the artwork is done, all 60 pages. The book is scripted, and I'm right around like 28 or 29 pages colored, although they're non-consecutive pages. So I'm like at the halfway point of coloring, and then I will be doing the lettering. That's the final step for those who don't know. And so then I'll be adding some pages on there to show everybody, like, here's what you're looking at.
Excellent. All right.
Really looking at.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for bringing the Super Gals onto the channel tonight and for talking about, comics in general. I love conversations where we talk about the book, but then we kind of meander a bit into what we've read, what we like. It helps things flow. Otherwise,
I love talking comics. I mean, I could do that all week.
Yeah, same here. And I don't get to talk about comics as much anymore as I get to complain about them, and it's a totally different conversation.
That's why I like talking about older comics because they're so fun, they're so great. I don't even want to talk about the current stuff.
And I don't have to, fortunately for me. I mean, I've got well, the new stuff I've got is all crowdfunded stuff. I'm surprised
that's where
how much crowdfunded stuff I have, actually.
All the good stuff is coming out indie and crowdfunding. I mean, all that stuff like Von Klaus's Black Terror looks a lot cooler than anything I've seen coming out of Marvel and DC lately. Cyberfrog Wrecked Planet looks awesome. The Wraith of God by Aaron Lopresti looks totally rad. Like, all these books are so cool. They're all owned by the creators. These guys are making money. You can tell they enjoy it, that they're passionate about it. And you're not getting that out of the mainstream industry. You're just not.
Well, the mainstream industry, I've said for a few years now, is no longer being, comics are no longer being produced by people who love comics.
Bingo. Yeah, it's a very good way of putting it.
And, we don't have our Stan Lees, our Dick Giordanos, our Julie Schwartzes, our Roy. We still have Roy Thomas. He's just not working for any of the big two comic companies.
Right.
So I would love for Marv Wolfman and John Byrne and Roy Thomas and Mike Barron, Pat Broderick, all these guys who are still out here to just like, hey, why don't we just form our own company and put out the comics the way we used to? Like, I would buy those comics. Every single one of them.
I mean, have you seen John Byrne put out 32 or 34 issues of the X-Men on his site?
Yeah, on his website.
Just because he was just doing it for fun.
Yeah, this is how my story would have continued.
Yeah.
What I would have done.
And I've been telling people that's the only real X-Men series that's been out in the last at least decade, if not more. I mean, I read every issue. I was looking forward to it month to month. And like, if anyone is an X-Men fan, and I would say go to his site and read those issues. They're free because he obviously can't charge for them. Yeah. And they're complete issues. I mean, he pencils and letters it, but he doesn't ink it or color. But I mean, the work is beautiful. Top of his game.
Yeah. Still.
Yeah. So like you said, all those names, all those creator names, like, yeah, I would totally be into stuff they would be putting out. Some of them are retired more or less, so they probably don't want to necessarily get back into the rat race. I can understand that.
Yeah.
But even if they just
not,
like annuals or limited series or something.
Yeah. I mean, I was at, again, a long time ago, I was at a convention in Chicago, and it was around the same time that DC was putting out G.A.L.S. They were kicking off the miniseries again. And it would just be a short run. And I'm at the Chicago Comic-Con, and I turn into a small room because there were some tables laid out there. I just want to see what's in there. Right on the inside of the door, there's this elderly couple with this giant painting, acrylic painting of Alan Scott Green Lantern. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I look down, and it's Sheldon Moldoff and his wife. And I'm like, I don't mean to offend, but I didn't know you were still alive.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking. How
well,
was this?
It was the late 80s. It was about 88 or 89.
Okay.
And I had, my greatest Batman and Joker stories there. And by coincidence, he had stories in both. So he signed inside of both of those. It's when I pull out my greatest Batman stories now, it's like looking at a funeral register. It's like everybody who signed it is dead. Jim Aparo, Dick Giordano, Denny O'Neil, all those guys. But I said, if you're still here and you're still doing art, why aren't you doing the artwork for G.A.L.S? Because those were your babies, and his sweet little wife just leaned forward and said, would you go to the DC table and tell them that? Because, he still wanted to work. That was what he did.
It's such a shame that happened to so many of the greats. I mean, the guys who created these characters, who built up the industry. And when they got older, they were basically just tossed aside for the younger up and coming talent. And it was like there was no place for them all of a sudden, like almost overnight is what it seems like just looking at the comics. So it probably seemed like that to them as well.
Yeah.
And
it breaks my heart to hear stories about William Messner Loebs and his health issues and no insurance at all to speak of because he didn't have a paying job technically all that time when he was creating legendary stories.
Right. He's a local guy to me too. He's I'm in Michigan. He's lives somewhere around because he's always at the local cons here. And it's just a shame. Like you hear some of these stories, like occasionally you'll get like a John Byrne who's apparently doing quite well for himself. And, hey, that's awesome. I mean, he's done a lot of work. But all too often there's guys you're just like, this shouldn't have been allowed to happen. It's just horrible that the industry treated them like that.
I completely agree. This didn't get any better. It's still just as bitter and weird tasting an hour later.
Are you tasting the gnat in there?
Oh, that explains it. Yeah. It's like there's always still that. It's like I chewed a Hershey's Kiss and took a swig of beer. Like,
ew.
Next thing you know, I'll be pouring it on top of my cereal, and it just doesn't seem to work that way. Anyhow, again, thank you for bringing the project on here tonight.
Thank you for having me. And next time I'll make sure I do have a webcam, like a separate one from my laptop. So like I'll just have to pull that out and use that instead.
Yeah, especially if you're going to show artwork pages off there, so the fog doesn't obscure it all. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here tonight for the show. We don't have one without you. We're just a podcast falling in the woods otherwise. So we're happy that you're here. And while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night, everybody.